OpsRamp Wednesday. So we've actually got Eric Cook with us today to tell us a little bit about his background, how he got into technology, and then tell us a little bit about OpsRamp and how OpsRamp's going to make a big difference for organisations. Understanding how what their infrastructure looks like and manages the events and things. So we'll get into that further. So let's kick off though, Eric. So tell us a little bit about yourself, then your background, where you're from. From your accent, I don't believe you're from the UK, are you?
I am not. I do live in the UK, but I'm from Seattle originally. I grew up there, spent most of my life there. I moved around a little bit. I spent 9 years in Portland, Oregon, which is the just down the coast from Seattle. And then I've spent 4 years living in Dallas, Texas, and then a few little stints here and there in other places around the world. I've spent a little bit of time in Malaysia, a little bit of time in South Korea, as well as here in the UK.
Which part of Seattle?
So not Seattle proper. I tell people Seattle because people don't know the area. The big airport there is called
Yeah.
SeaTac, which stands for Seattle Tacoma.
Yeah.
I actually lived in the south part of Tacoma, right by Mount
Yeah,
Rainier.
and that's where the Boeing air place is as well, isn't it? Down that way, is
No,
it?
the Boeing is right in the
Oh,
middle,
I thought it was
actually.
down by the actual airport, SeaTac.
No, it's actually the Boeing plant is actually almost in downtown Seattle.
Ah,
There's actually a separate airport called King County Airport.
ah.
They only do a few commercial flights, but that's where Boeing's main facility
Yeah,
is.
I spent a lot of time in Kirkland because I was working with a company that was based out of Kirkland that did
Oh yeah.
mainframe integration. So I flew into SeaTac quite a few times and up there, and spent quite a lot of time going up to Vancouver as well because it's a reasonable drive up there, isn't it?
I love Vancouver. It's such a great
Yeah.
place. It's amazing. But the Seattle area is amazing. Having all the water there, having the nice UK like weather. People constantly ask me in the UK, "Aren't you shocked by the weather here?" And I keep having to tell them, "No, it's exactly like it was at home."
Yeah, I can say that as well. It's like living in Manchester, really.
Yeah.
So tell us a bit about your journey from education into technology. Did you go straight into technology for work, or did you have any stops along the way?
Yeah, so I had sort of a weird start. I actually went to university for religion and divinity and ended up leaving early to join a technology company and at the age of 19. And I've actually been in technology since then. And I just turned 43 a month ago. So that's 24 years now in technology, most of that in ITOM and ITSM.
So a good background for where you are at the moment with OpsRamp then.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. In fact, the last company I worked at was very similar in technology, just with a different slant.
So tell us a bit about OpsRamp then, and what you've been. How long have you been at OpsRamp now?
I have been here, so I just had my 2 year anniversary with OpsRamp. So I've been here a couple of years. I've been in the UK for 21 of those 24 months. And I joined originally to be part of the marketing team, believe it or not. But when they decided to open up a UK entity and to expand into Europe, I volunteered to come over and help them build this business here. And I couldn't be happier living here in the UK.
Ah, sounds good. So tell us a little bit more about your role within OpsRamp. What areas are you working? Is it all customer facing?
Yeah. So today I am the title is Director of Solutions Consulting. It's a fancy way of saying I'm in charge of our pre-sales team. So I work on everything that we do from demos to proofs of concept through to developing statements of work for professional services.
And I'm sure you speak to a lot of customers and understand their issues as part of that process. Any common threads that you're seeing with people you're speaking to?
Yeah, so we try to remain very consultative during our process because we have a platform that's very big that does a lot of things. What we're more focused on is helping people solve actual business problems than just solving technology problems because obviously we want to help them drive forward their business. But one of the common themes that we see is people having trouble reconciling their hybrid cloud environments. So when they've got a big on-prem environment and they've got cloud or public cloud, trying to reconcile that. And the other big problem we see is with people who have a lot of technology and a lot of tools, but don't have all of the information in one place so they can't make good decision from the data in those tools.
Yeah, I can agree with that with what I've seen as well. So sometimes it's quite a challenge with so many different products in place that you're jumping between them to try and get a picture, but you're not getting a consistent picture of the whole of the environment and what's happening with it.
Yeah, and that, I see one other trend that I see is that when people are starting to do things like have separate DevOps teams that aren't part of the standard IT teams, then you see another separation there as well, where you've got them using their own tools and IT using their own tools. And even though they're both supporting the exact same business, they don't necessarily have any information to share. And we also see that as a significant issue that the current organizations are facing.
So if you were to give me three key things that OpsRamp delivers that's a real advantage to an organization when they deploy it, what would those three key things be?
Well, I would say the first and probably the most important thing is just overall visibility of all of the technology that supports business services, and the understanding of how that technology is related to one another. The other thing is a consolidation of all of the monitoring alerts, whether they're produced by OpsRamp or by other sources like App Dynamics or New Relic or Dynatrace or Splunk, and bringing those all into one place. And the third, and probably the most important, is the machine learning and the automation processes that we bring to learn from the data that's coming in, to apply better intelligence to it, and ultimately to resolve problems on the spot using automation.
Well, what we've seen is AIOps becoming very big nowadays, especially when people are doing digital transformation projects. Because when you get into a situation that the whole business is actually being operated through some kind of dynamic web-based or business process service, you need to make sure it works. Because if it goes down, you don't have a business, do you, for that period of time? So AIOps, and where do you see the key areas in that AIOps piece integrating with OpsRamp so far? You mentioned around events and reducing the amount of events. What other areas do you see that AIOps comes into the equation?
Well, there's a few different places. One of those places is in automation, because when there's a problem that happens, typically people want to try to resolve those problems automatically, or they want to do some sort of external integration, say with a service management platform like ServiceNow or something like that. So what we see is there's a dynamic in the AI ops where there's a lot of solutions that are focused entirely on event management or just processing messages, but they're not actually providing a complete service around that, because there are really four components. There's the monitoring and the finding of the faults, whether they're internal or external. There's the finding the root cause and determining what that root cause is, but then applying automation to it and then documenting the process, because that's extremely important if organizations are going to prevent these problems from happening again.
Yeah, and I think automation brings consistency, doesn't it? In a lot of cases as well. So if you know that the first thing to do is always to say restart a process, if you can automate that, you've already covered off the first thing you would normally do in a manual process. And then if that doesn't fix it, you can move on to the next stage, where that's again automated or whether you need manual intervention.
Yeah, I think that's only part of the process, which is the automation of a fix. But there's oftentimes a lot of automation that goes on that has nothing to do with fixing a problem, like maybe expanding an environment to add new containers, or to invoke a change script in your cloud to increase capacity or decrease capacity as needed. But there's also the ability to do other tasks like documentation when a fix isn't possible. Because there are always going to be IT issues that can't be fixed with automation, and in those, the best thing we can do is create problem records for people so that they can investigate them and actually get it fixed by someone who's a developer or a systems person from a third party. I find that extremely important outside of just the ability to apply a standard fix, as you would as you suppose there.
Yeah, I'm going to say from my perspective, the big thing that you're trying to achieve in this digital transformation is to be able to predict failure if you can and prevent it. Yeah, so that the systems prevail. But like you say, not everything can be fixed. But at least if you've got a shortcut to finding where the problem resides and some insight data to be able to understand how to fix it quickly, yeah, you're in a better position than the traditional way of doing things.
I totally agree, and I think that a lot of people focus on the term MTTR, or mean time to resolution. But the biggest determiner of how fast you're going to resolve any given problem is actually how fast you can detect what the root cause is. And I think there's a big linkage between the resolution of an issue and finding what's actually causing it. And that's, I think, is something that we do really well, and something that saves businesses time and money. Because if you look at a complex issue where you've got maybe an ERP solution or something like that that has databases and cloud services and document services and portals, when something goes wrong, it's not always easy to pinpoint the root cause. But by applying machine learning to the events that are coming in, to the relationships between the objects, how does this server access this cloud database? Understanding those things help us track down that root cause so that we can reduce the time it takes to even troubleshoot and detect the problem. Because I think that's the biggest issue. In a lot of times, you'll see it's very fast to fix a problem, but only if you know what the problem really is.
Yeah, very true, very true. I think also if you look at the environments most people are creating now, you talked about multi-cloud environments, but also the DevOps type pieces that people are integrating into that. We can end up with a situation where we've got multiple environments up, maybe on premise in different data centers or private cloud infrastructure, as well as maybe using one or two different cloud providers. So if you're looking at the whole environment, and also moving away from where we were with, say, virtual machines into containers, we've got a really dynamic environment because things are appearing and moving around, quite quickly. And it also brings great challenges in when you're trying to monitor and manage that infrastructure.
Yeah, I think one of the things that we did very consciously was we made sure that our platform would auto provision as well, so that as new containers come on, as new cloud services come on, new VMs come on, we're hooked into their APIs so that we know about those things, so we can provision them in real time. And then we also have a backup in case we don't provision in real time, which is if we receive an alert for something that doesn't exist yet, we create it in real time. And that's really good for tracking down and keeping track of these massively growing environments. But as you pointed out, they're not just growing, they're shrinking, they're moving, they're doing all sorts of things. And so keeping on top of that is a huge challenge. And it's not a challenge that people can keep up with. That's why AI is so important to me, is because the complexity of most IT environments these days, or DevOps environments, however you want to pose them, is becoming bigger and more complex. And you've got things that are in your control in your data center, you've got things in the cloud that are out of your control. All of those moving parts just make this a much more difficult proposition to try to figure out what's causing the issue and how do I fix it. So AI and machine learning are key to those things. I always give an example when I do a demonstration and I show how many alerts I received in my demo environment this month, which is typically about 1.4 million alerts a month. That translated down to only 1,800 tickets. I can't manage 1.4 million alerts. Most people just ignore them, but I can manage 1,400 incidents with my enterprise team, and that's really where the difference is.
Yeah. And so coming on from that, so these alerts are generating tickets, and you've got the integration into ServiceNow, which is one of the key ITSM platforms that people are using these days. So what kind of integration do you do between OpsRamp and ServiceNow, and what are the advantages for the customer of doing that integration?
Yeah, there's actually several integrations, but the most popular one is by far incident management, where when we have determined a root cause, we can create an incident in ServiceNow and then keep it up to date bidirectionally. So any updates we have will go to ServiceNow. Any updates in ServiceNow come back to us. So there's a full documentation trail, but people don't actually have to leave our console. So they can actually just do their work, fix the problem, move on. It'll close the incident or do whatever it needs to do in ServiceNow, but it's fully documented. That includes things like automation. So if I take let's say I do apply a fix, an automatic fix, then that should be a note that automatically goes into the ServiceNow record so that somebody knows they tried to fix it automatically. It worked, great. Or it didn't work, oops, we need to do something. Another type of integration that we quite often do is CMDB. Because we do discovery of all on-premise and cloud assets, including all platform services and microservices. We oftentimes will be used as a source for the CMDB to populate data for people who are doing config management. And the last one, while it seems minor, is actually pretty important. Connection into change management in ServiceNow, so that when you have change windows, those change windows get reflected in our platform so that we don't send you alerts during the change windows and they don't count against the SLAs of service delivery and things like that. Those are the most common types. There are other types that we've seen people do with their third-party processes. We have a completely open API that's bidirectional, so you can build whatever you want in our solution.
So coming back to one of the earlier things that we spoke about, you mentioned about the business side of things. So I understand that OpsRamp can also create effectively business maps or map the services from the infrastructure onto a business process map. How does that help an organization?
It really has to do more with criticality and understanding the impact of alerts and incidents that are coming in. One of the classic things that I like to describe is, and I'll go back to that ERP I referenced a moment ago. When you've got a bunch of different pieces, you've got databases, you've got storage, you've got networks, you've got virtualization, you may have cloud services connected. When there's a failure, it's really important to understand whether that failure causes a failure of the service or not. And that's why we provide that capability, because we don't want a minor component to fail that looks like it's important and have everyone have their hair on fire trying to fix a problem that isn't actually taking a service down, while you've got something else that is taking a service down. So we apply that so that people understand criticality, but then we also track service levels against it so that we can understand what the availability of the business service is. This is something that I constantly harp on, because I came from the ITSM world. And in the ITSM world, people usually think of SLA as the response time of an incident, or the how soon can I solve an incident. But in actuality, the business views SLAs as how available is my service. Our IT, are you actually keeping my business up and running? Because no matter what we do today, all businesses are IT businesses.
Yeah.
That's just the way it is.
And I can see from that there's value from both sides with those business, process maps. That one, the business can see, like you say, the availability of the service that they're delivering, whether that's an e-commerce, ERP, HR system, any of the components that's underneath it that make it. But also, like you say, the criticality of the components that are beneath it and how they're affecting that service. So you can, put the right level of urgency against the activity, to deal with incidents that are derived from it as well.
Yeah, and you're seeing that more and more as people move to hybrid applications too, because they may move some non-critical components of their applications to the cloud, for example, like to an RDS or to some sort of other function in AWS. When that function fails, it can be impactful, but it's not taking the service down. And so we want to be able to always differentiate between that.
That's great. Well, I'm just conscious of time. We've just hit nearly 19 minutes. We try and keep these videos down to 10 to 15 minutes, but I think there was so much to talk about this first time. What would be great is to get you back and actually to drill down into one of those areas, and maybe to give a demonstration of one of the key things around maybe the discovery or some of the event management pieces in the future. So hopefully you'd be happy to do that.
Absolutely. Anytime.
All right. Well, thank you very much for your time today. What we're going to do is close it off now, and hopefully get you back as soon as possible.
All right. Thanks, Leah. Really appreciate
Thank you.
it.